Here we're going to look step by step how to do CSS image replacement. So the first thing that you want to do is start, and this assumes, I should say, that you've already put your HTML out there and we're just looking at the styling of it. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you style your text with your CSS. So you're going to set a font size and your line height. You'll still have your font family in here, and the ones I'm looking at today are Museo, which is a slab serif, Rockwell, which is a slab serif that people may have installed on their computers, and then it goes down to serif. And I set a font weight and a color as well. So let's do that. I'm going to go to the HTML here. So that's the HTML we're working with. I have an H1 that says my first title. I'm linking now to the style sheet, that's styles.css, which is right here. And so there we go. So there it is. We just put that in, our styling, have it up, and then we'll take a look at how it looks in the browser. So here's how that looks in the browser. Now obviously I have this font on my computer, so that's how it looks, and it looks fine. What I'm going to do, just for demonstration purposes, to make sure we know that we're doing this right and it's coming out okay, is that I'm going to, change this. So I'm going to just copy and paste it. And again. And this is also a little trick you can do if you want to test out your font stack and see how it is. And then I'm going to comment out this one. And I'm going to delete Museo here. And I'm going to delete all of them except serif here. Actually, it should be lowercase s. And I'm going to comment out this one as well. So I want to see what it looks like with just the Rockwell for now. So there it is. Now we're going to refresh it and see how the title changes. So there we go. Now it's as Rockwell. And as you can see, they're relatively similar, but not exactly the same. And then we can also see how it looks if we just have the serif. Okay, and so obviously not really how we'd want it to look. I'm going to leave it here for now. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm just going to leave it here so we can make sure we can see that our image replacement is coming in. And this is something that you may want to do as well when you're first testing this out, is to just comment out what you really want so that you can tell when the image comes in that it is what you want. Okay, so now let's look at the next step. So now we're going to go into an image editor and create the text with the same settings as our CSS. So for this, we're going to look at Photoshop. All right, and create a new file, and I'm going to call this IR text. And I also should know how big it is. So the other one I set to a height of 50 pixels in it, and I'm just going to set the width to, let's say, I know that this shouldn't be more than 550 for this area that I'm using in, or whatever it is. This is also a good part where your design with a grid will help you out. I also going to set the background to transparent in case I for some reason want to do a transparent one. I could do that. So that's how I would set it up. And then I would end up with a new document like that. Now what I've done here is, oops. So let's go back a little. There we go. Okay. So this one down below is showing an example of how it would look. So I'm going to choose my text tool here. So we're choosing the text tool, and we're going to type in some text into it. And so the title is my first title. And then what I would do is I would make sure that everything matched up. So in this, on my color here, I would go to my CSS and say, what's this color? I'm going to copy that, and then in Photoshop, you paste it in here. right? You see it's where this little pound is here is the area where you get your hexadecimal color. Just don't copy the pound from your CSS, copy everything but the pound. You can paste it in there, say OK, and there we have our text, our color, and we want to make sure that that color is applied to your text. So when I select my text here, you'll notice that this toolbar changes. Alright, so now I have a chance to do the font and the weight and the size and so forth. And so that's what I'm going to also make sure. So I would select the font, make sure that this matches up with, let's see, come down here, and just sort of show you how these things match up. So 48 pixels, that's 48 point. My line height of 50 pixels, I should actually probably give it a height. That factored into the fact that I made this 50 pixels tall. The font family, Museo here, which is the one I really want to use, so that's the one I chose. And I chose a font weight of 700, so I'm choosing that font weight there. This happens to be the way this font works, 700 and so forth. You might just have bold on yours or normal, and so you would choose it that way. And then the color, I'm making sure is the same color here. And if that's not the same color there at the time, then I could just click that, paste it in there, and say OK. I did the one on the bottom left, I apologize before. That's the general one, but if you want to make sure it's exactly for the text, this is the one to do up here. And so now these are all matched up together. And then I'm just using my move tool here and making sure that that this is placed in so that you can see the whole font. And also I'm going to move it over to the left a little bit so that it is aligned on the left, and I would want to make sure that all my other titles have the same alignment on them. Okay, if I did have a padding for some reason on the H1, like a padding left, I would make sure that I would also add that same amount of pixels padding on the left here in the image. So you want to match up the two pretty much the same so that they look mostly the same when it's there. Okay, so that's that step. Now the next step for it is to export it as a PNG or GIF file. So from Photoshop here, I'm going to save this and then make sure it's, saved. So there we go. Don't want to mess up. Usually before you export, always make sure you saved. So then you go to File menu, which you didn't see me click on File, but it's File, Save for Web and Devices. And here we go. So you can select your one. I'm using PNG 8, basically PNG or GIF. In this case, I don't need a transparency, so I have no transparency selected. Also, other browsers don't see transparencies in PNGs without some help, so I'm just going to leave it like that. It could also be done as a GIF, but I want to make sure it's 100% and so forth. And I should see that my image size here is showing up properly, what I wanted to see, and the percent down there. Okay, and then we'll click Save. And I'll save that in my images with some kind of name that I can do, that I can remember. My first title, we're going to call it. Alright, so now I have that image, and if I went to here, you would see in images we now have the My First title saved out. Great. Let's look at the next step. So now we want to add a unique ID to my element, which we're doing here, to make sure that we can target it with our CSS. So each title now has a separate image file, so it needs an ID on it, so that I know I'm just replacing that title with that image and not anything else. So that's pretty simple. So we'll go to our HTML here, and we'll add that ID. Alright, and then I'm going to just copy this, select it and copy it, because we're going to need it in the next step. So the next step is to add in the image replacement CSS. So this is what we would do, and we can get it just from our the website there. What I'm going to do first is add my selector in. So here we go. I copied that, so do pound, paste in. So I'm add my selector for My First title, and now I'm going to do it by going to the website. and this is our Fark Revisited that we're using. So this is the mesoblue.com/tests/revise-image-replacement, and I'm going to copy what's inside of this because they use a separate. See, their selector was for the header here, so I'm going to replace that with mine. But I'm just going to copy these pieces here and go back to my style sheet and paste it in. Okay, so that part is good. So far, so good. Now I wouldn't see anything different because this image is not pointing to the image that we want. So in order to point to the image we want, one thing to remember here with CSS is that when you do a background image, the URL is relative to the style sheet. So here's my style sheet here, and I need to somehow get out of the CSS folder into the images folder and then to my first title.png. So let's look at how we're going to do that. So I'm going to delete this. So the way you get out of a folder is it's .. That's saying go up out of the CSS folder, and then I want to say go into the images folder, so I just type images. Then / means go into that and look for my first title.png. Depending on how you've organized your folders, it may be different, but this is a very common way if you have a CSS folder and an images folder that you'll see it like this. So I'm going to save that, and we're going to go back to our page here, and let's look. So this is what we have right now, and as I refresh this, let's see if it works. Didn't work. So let's see what our problem may or may not be. So first we want to double check that we've gotten the selectors right. And so that's it. Let's see, ID, my first title. I see what my problem is. I didn't save this, and so that's why it's not working. So I changed this and added the ID. This is a very common mistake. Depending on what you're using to do it, most programs now have something that shows you. This one has a little dot on it that will show it's not saved versus the X if it's saved. Oops, I moved it by accident while I was doing that. But that's the picture. So now I will save that and refresh it, and there we go. So great. So now we have my first title out there, which is okay, but we still have some issues with that. So let's modify this a little bit more and make it a full CSS that we're going to need. So one is that their height was set to 25 pixels, but mine was 50 pixels. Okay, so that's good. So let's change that and refresh. That's looking a bit better. Now, of course, you see my first title, my first title, my first title. That's because the background repeat is on. So we're going to add a repeat oh wait, sorry, this is one I always forget. It's not repeat none, it's no dash repeat. Okay, sorry, no dash repeat. And refresh that, and then now we have our image replacement. So that's pretty good. There we have one title, it's shown out, and we have all the image replacement done. Alright, and that's just to show here again, these are sort of all the pieces that point to each other. So just to sort of go through, this is our CSS adding, so that points to the style sheet. We have our normal styling with our H1 that targets the H1 element and all H1 elements. Then we have our title here, my first title, which targets the actual title that we want to use and brings in the image that is that image that we exported out.